what we have here are two crossovers. Actually make that two more extreme crossovers. Not your typical soft roader, not your mall assault vehicle, but vehicles that can actually go off-road. They're designed for people who get away from their computer screens and actually grab their mountain bikes, kayaks, canoes, skis, camping gear, whatever, and go out and explore the world.
Both these SUVs are not as hardcore as maybe a Jeep Wrangler or a Toyota 4Runner, but these are true dual-purpose vehicles. These are built to be your only car, built for commuting to the office throughout the week and getting out beyond the checkerboard on the weekends.
So what we have is the 2021 Ford Bronco Sport Badlands
and the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness. They are both off-road packages on top of already capable all-wheel drive CUVs.
We're going to find which of these two off-road ready vehicles is actually better in the mud and the dirt, but also, and probably more importantly, which one is better day-to-day driving.
Well, which one should we start with?
Bronco Sport Badlands.
Let's do it. So, the 2021 Ford Bronco Sport Badlands. But it's not bad. It's good, in fact.
Yeah, but good lands just doesn't cut it.
No, it doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely.
No.
So, $45,549 as tested.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. It's actually more than the Outback Wilderness by some amount.
About $3,500.
Under hood, we have a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder making 245 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque. This thing's quick.
It is quick. It's not that heavy a vehicle. Not like the Bronco.
Not like the real Bronco,
Not
no.
like the real Bronco. No, 8-speed automatic transmission.
Only one you can get.
Yeah.
Versus the Subaru, which has a CVT, but more on that later. How does it feel on the road?
You know, it's a short wheelbase unit, so its ride is going to be a little choppier than the longer wheelbase Outback, but not bad at all. It feels solid. It feels solid.
Yeah, I did notice that the ride is good, but not as good as what you would find in Subaru. And again, that's just a factor mostly of wheelbase, I assume. How's your roominess in this one? Headroom, legroom, how are you?
Well, up front, I mean, with the high roof and stuff, no problem. I mean, there's plenty of room for my long legs, a lot of height, very comfortable. Rear seat, not so much.
The rear seat in this is like only semi-usable. There's plenty of headroom in either row, but there's not a lot of length, and that's again because of that shorter wheelbase, which it must be said makes this better off-road than the Subaru. It's got a shorter wheelbase, it has shorter overhangs, despite the fact that it has actually less ground clearance than the Subaru. It has a rear locker, it has a central diff locker. This is a very capable off-road CUV.
This is more than your mall assault vehicle. It's not a soft roader. You can actually do some serious off-roading, you know, to get to remote campsites, you know, wherever you want to go.
Basically, yes, wherever you want to go, the Bronco Sport Badlands will take you there. The fuel economy, despite being a smaller vehicle with a smaller engine, it's about the same as the Subaru, almost a dead heat.
Virtually identical. What I also like, as I said earlier about the utility, the interior is really nicely laid out. I mean, the look, I like this two-tone, you know, tobacco-colored seats and the black. It's nicely trimmed out.
This interior is full of really nice touches. I like this kind of copper accents around the doors. I like the cell phone cubby. I like a lot of how this interior is laid out. It's clearly something that Ford spent a lot of time making it very user-friendly. It definitely doesn't have that kind of utilitarian off-road, you know, sparse interior that you would expect from the rugged exterior of this vehicle.
Right.
Another thing that I like about this interior is, I think the same thing that you like, is that there's hard buttons for almost every function. I can change where the climate control is coming from, the temperature, heated seats, heated wheel, blower fan speed. Almost all the climate control functions are right here in clearly marked buttons. Big knobs for all that I want to do. It's really, really intuitive. Versus the Subaru, which is a mostly touch-based infotainment system. I really like the tactile system that Ford has with the Bronco Sport.
Yeah.
I think that about does it for the Bronco Sport. Shall we try the Subaru Outback Wilderness?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we are in the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness.
Yeah, new model that came out during the summer. There's a lot of minor cosmetic things, but a couple of key features: all-terrain tires, higher ground clearance, skid plates, and handy little catches for your rooftop tent. Mm-hmm.
Those little orange panels are hiding latches for you to mount your tent to.
Right.
And then they have tow hooks under the orange covers in the front and little tie downs in the rear. So hypothetically, you could use those to, mount a canoe if you had a canoe hanging out over the roof or something like that.
Or a tent.
Or a tent.
Or a tent.
It is the active person's vehicle.
Exactly. And yours for $41,995.
Exactly, which
All
is
in.
less than our Bronco.
Tested price? Yep. This is about $3,500 less expensive.
Now, also like the Bronco Sport Badlands, this has a larger, more powerful engine than other lesser Outbacks. This has a 2.4-liter turbocharged engine, and what are the specs on that one?
260 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of torque. So it is slightly more powerful than the Badlands. It's also about 100 kilos heavier.
But both these cars really do get out of their own way. They are not pokey. These things do move around. The other thing I like about this car, obviously it's a longer wheelbase. So with that, you get two things. First of all, you get less headroom, although not an oppressive thing. It's just not as much as Bronco Sport. But that longer wheelbase gives you a smoother, more relaxed ride.
Yeah, and it gives you better rear seat accommodations for taller people.
Mm-hmm. Because the rear seats in the Bronco Sport are kind of challenged by that short wheelbase, whereas these are like proper rear seats.
Yeah.
On the off-road angle, you get X mode,
Yeah.
which is basically just kind of holds the CVT in like a higher rev range.
Oh, it's enhanced for the wilderness.
Enhanced
Yeah.
for the wilderness.
Yeah.
But unlike the Bronco Sport, you don't get a rear diff locker, you don't get a central locker. It's all just going to be via brake vectoring.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as complex or as robust a system as you'll find in the Bronco.
No.
Also, your approach and departure angles in this are not as good because there's an entire engine hanging in front of the front wheels. It's a Subaru and it's got all that cargo space in the back. So it's a roomier vehicle, but ultimately it's not as off-road capable as the Bronco.
No, it will not be as good off-road as the Bronco Sport Badlands. Also, the one thing I really like is the interior. The Badlands is nice, but this is kind of wash and wear interior.
I like it. It has these kind of wetsuit material for the seats. They're very soft. They're very comfortable. I like the Outback Wilderness design touches, like these little tags on the door I think are fun. And I think it's interesting, whereas the Bronco Sport was a rubber floor that had carpeted mats on it. This is a carpet floor with rubber mats. So both are all-weather capable.
Not crazy about the center stack here.
We need to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of buttons, a lot of features on it. It actually kind of overwhelms you. The other thing, my one beef, and this is the old fart talking, it does not come with navigation. It might be a minor thing, but it bothers me.
I'm not a fan of the amount of touchscreen functions it makes you use. For example, like things like heated seats that I like to use all the time are on the touchscreen and like a menu thing. I'm not against all touchscreens, but this one I'm not a fan of.
No.
But I'm also not a fan of all CVTs, but this is a really good CVT. It's one of the few CVTs that you can get in it, drive it for a good half day before you realize it's a CVT under there. Whereas a lot of them you realize immediately.
Yeah, well, there are 8 gears.
Yes, gears.
To the CVT. Gives you a more natural feel. So, interesting.
Must we find a winner?
I think we have to.
So we've got these cars dirty, we've driven them on dirt, we've driven them on the pavement. What do we think is the winner?
The Bronco is the better off-road vehicle. We're agreed there.
We agree. With the rear locker, the central diff locker, those shorter overhangs, it is more capable off-road.
Mind you, the Wilderness is pretty damn good.
It's true, the Wilderness is no slouch in the dirt.
So we'll give the edge to the Bronco off-road. The rest of the working week.
Yes, which is the majority of the week, by the way.
In the Subaru's corner, I would say it rides better, it's smoother.
More cargo space and more rear seat space.
So it's probably the better family vehicle.
I would also say it manages to overcome the fact that we don't like its infotainment system as much as Ford's, which is, you know, just
Very
buttons.
intuitive, very easy to use. And I have to say, I mean, I really like the looks of the Bronco Sport.
I do too.
Decisions.
My decision has got to be the Subaru Outback Wilderness. It's 9/10 as good off-road, but it's markedly better in a city environment. So I'm willing to take that trade-off of ultimate off-road performance for, in my opinion, a more pleasing all-around vehicle.
I agree. The winner of this comparison is the Subaru Outback Wilderness.
For Driving.ca, I'm Clayton Seams.
For Driving.ca, I'm Brian Harper.
And for more off-road SUV reviews and information, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
And go to the Driving.ca website to read a more complete review of these two vehicles.